Call the other one, it's got bells on it. Would you prefer the patriotic version with a flag? Should that be a St George's cross? Well, hi, this is James Williams and Chimes Media. And well, I seriously thought about wearing this because the craziness of today's world is baffling to me and probably a lot of people. And so where do you start with things? I don't know. There's so many subjects and such depth in them. I thought, well, there seems to be a division between different groups like nothing before I've seen. And is it to do with reality? There's such vitriol being expressed, particularly by the far left. And there's a danger the far right will go that way as well. But, towards anyone that doesn't quite agree and match up with them, with their views. And, considering I started off life in a Labour family, a sort of left of centre family, and seeing how things have, degenerated, I suppose. It fills me with deep concern. And so, I've taken a lot of time to go into philosophical thinkings, and I'm been working for months and months and months now on a philosophy on a subject called neo-pantheism, but that's the sort of faith element, if you like. But it's helped me to focus on what is truth, what is reality, what is propaganda, what are lies. And just one thing I wanted to say is that how do you know when you're expressing an opinion, how do you know you're not just repeating propaganda yourself? How do you know others are? How do you know that you're the one that's got the truth and the others haven't? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because we can only rely on facts, and it tends to be facts versus feelings, really. That's how it's expressed. But it's not quite so straightforward as that. You might think you're sort of, you're on the side of right if you just stick to facts. But facts need interpretation. They need to be understood. And so when you go to you're expressing a fact, like for example, the sun came up this morning. That's a fact. It did that. How do I know? Well, it does it every morning, doesn't it? Apart from it's cloudy, but it's still up even if it's cloudy, isn't it? So that's a fact. The sun rises every day, and that is that's something you can say is objective, and we can all agree on it. But nothing so. There's many other things are not quite so truthful. So I look at my country, the UK, and Europe as well, and I don't watch a lot of television. Actually, we don't have a television functioning in the house. It's for films only, just DVDs and stuff like that. So much of the news I get is through either radio or mainly online, and occasionally I come across a newspaper, but and I read lots of books as well. But books tend to be sort of slow information because they're not happening at the moment. So when you look at reality, what you're doing is actually when you're actually living day to day, whatever it may be you're doing. You're trying to navigate, if you're trying to go somewhere, you're trying to navigate from one fact to another. Each fact is like a navigational mark that tells you where you are. And how you navigate around that mark, that's up to you. But between those marks, how you evaluate that navigation mark, that reality, that truth, that is the subjective thing. So you can't get away from like a form of faith. You can go from fact to fact and draw the lines, the dotted lines, and form a picture of But it's what you make of that picture. That is the faith part, the belief thing. I mean, quite simplistically, I don't know, it's a crude sort of analogy. Is that if you get out of bed in the morning, say, I mean, some people are on, I've done watch duty, but it doesn't matter. When you get out of bed, say, you expect the floor, you have a faith, a belief, the floor will be there, that you won't fall down some chasm, unless you're living in some precarious place, of course, then that might be a closer reality. But you have the faith that it won't fall down. You have the faith that you can walk across it and it will sustain your weight. You have a faith that you actually are alive. You believe in that. You do your ablutions or whatever you have to do. You have your breakfast, whatever you do. And each little thing is a reality to you. And if you relate something that's happened to you to somebody else, they, even at the simpler thing of I had breakfast this morning, they are forced to either believe it or not. So they don't know what your reality is because they're just relying on your report of the reality. See how complex it gets? And that's just a simple thing. That's just a simple everyday function, if you like. So when you look at something, say like there's a bomb explosion somewhere or a terrorist attack or something, you're relying on somebody else, unless you happen to be unfortunately there and witness it, you're actually relying on somebody else telling you, showing you what has happened. Like, you know, one that's current is that the American embassy moved to Jerusalem, and there's dozens and dozens of people who have been killed through, protesting against that. And one side will say, well, the Israelis were defending themselves and they were forced to shoot. And the others will say, well, they were shooting innocent people, that were just protesting. All they had is rocks on them. Well, depending on which side you believe, or what you believe, is all dependent, one, on you having been presented with the facts, the reality of what happened, or what has been happening. And two, have you listened to the interpretation of those facts, or have the facts that have been as presented, the subjective side of those facts, have they been presented in such a way as to present one side as good or bad? So when you're dealing with realities, it's very difficult to know what the truth is. So you take a position based on, I don't know, your hunches, your past experiences, your faith in things. And you end up somewhere away from where reality actually is. It's inevitable. It's not because you're a bad person or stupid or anything like that. It's the way reality presents itself. It's why, if you get a politician, for example, a very good politician who's very engaged in their community, and they go off to Westminster or wherever they go to, represent you, bit by bit, unless they've got lots of tentacles in the community to inform them, but bit by bit, they do lose a little bit of touch with their clientele, their constituents. It's inevitable. It's got to be, isn't it? You can't live everyone's life and know exactly what they're doing. So a lot of what we do is based on faith and trust and our interpretation of reality. I want to show you about some flowers that come out in the spring in my garden. I think they're called Phlox subulata. I'm not a horticulturist at all. But I'll show you this. Right. What happens with these little flowers, little pink flowers, they've got sort of 5 petals, and they come out just for a few weeks during spring when the sun's there. And when the sun disappears, or it goes behind the clouds, or it goes into, casts them into shadow, whatever it may be, they droop. they're sort of happy when the sun's shining and drooping and sad looking when it ain't. And there's me putting an interpretation into that, because flowers don't have feelings, do they? That'd be ridiculous. But it does beg the question, not just from myself, but the whole of humanity as a species. Do we put meaning into things where it isn't necessary? Do we interpret things in our own little way? Do we make things judged as right and wrong and good and bad? Are we, as humans, overall, a neurotic species? Until next time, take care of yourself.